Welcome, everybody, to Courage Rises with Susan Jeffries. I am talking to people about their everyday stories of courage and bravery. And today I'm talking to Tara Stricker. And I'll have Tara introduce herself and then we'll go on from there. So, Tara, tell us where you live, what you do, how old you are, that kind of thing.
So, hi, I'm Tara. I am a life coach, and energy healer out of Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. But I do a lot of my work online. So, I'm an international life coach, I guess. Um, and I am 43, just turned 43 in March.
So, when I first started my practice, Courage Rises, and you and I had a one-on-one to get to know each other, and I found that you have a very interesting courage story. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. And we talked about this when we talked earlier too. I wouldn't necessarily until just recently have said that it took courage, but I'm realizing how much it actually did take. So my story starts pretty much actually to the day that we're recording this, 6 years ago. My husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, and then he passed away 3 months later. So I went from having a career, having a husband, planning a family. We were just getting the mortgage on a new house. Actually, my childhood home we were going to get. And it literally all fell apart in the matter of days. So he came home and his face was drooping a bit. And I told him he had to go to the doctor. And so he went grudgingly, of course. He didn't like going to the doctor, like a lot of men, like a
Yes.
lot of people, really. Um, and so he went, and they ended up putting him in the hospital that night. They were thinking stroke, which I was like, because it was really weird because he felt fine. It was just like it was drooping a bit. And the whole time I was like, it's probably nothing, Bell's palsy or something
Bells,
like that.
right.
And we went, yeah. And so we went from that to 3 days later, him being in brain surgery. And I'm from a small town, so we had to go to a big center. So everything kind of was like, oh, good, everything's okay, to holy crap, what the hell? Um, and yeah, found out then that brain surgery is apparently not, how the saying is, like a brain surgeon. Apparently it's pretty common. Didn't realize that. And so he had brain surgery and he was home within a week. But then we got the diagnosis that it was stage 4 brain cancer. And really, there's not a good prognosis for that at all. Uh, so that was the beginning of July. And yeah, by September, he'd passed. It was a complete whirlwind. It was complete upheaval of everything. My foundation was definitely rocked. And so yeah, I had to get through that 3 months. And I mean, looking back now, I wouldn't say I thrived through it. I just survived. And
Yes, yeah,
yeah, just more and more kind of comes back because I feel like I wasn't even really living in my body. I was just like on survival mode pretty much, and in
yeah,
shock for sure.
yeah. Do you find when you talk about it, you start remembering little things? I mean, that's a huge shock to the system.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I do. Not so much anymore, but I mean, with my coaching, it's been part of my journey to be really open about what's happened because it was life changing, obviously. Um, but for more reasons than just losing my husband, I left my 20-year career in social work to become an entrepreneur. I followed my dreams. So everything was kind of in chaos.
Wow.
Um, and so, yeah, it was, and like I said, it kind of at the beginning when I started this, I don't think we realized how much because we just kind of make it through,
Yeah.
but how much it actually takes out of you to make it through, to just make it through.
One of the common themes that I hear when I talk to people is that, I just had to do it. It didn't seem like anything valiant or anything brave at the time. It's just like, you have to do it because life happened to you and you have to respond. But
Yep.
I think, there are some people that are lucky and they respond in such a way that they get up and learn to walk another day, and others will just kind of take a month, a year, the rest of their lives to process it all. So the entrepreneurial stuff, was that in the works when he was sick? No, it was just
No,
all, it's like, I'm going to throw my life up in the air.
pretty much everything was already in chaos. And To be honest, it was him literally on his deathbed. It was a day or two before he passed away. We didn't know that then, but he was talking about, because he always wanted to train dogs and he loved working with dogs. But when he left the army, he couldn't envision himself being an entrepreneur, and so he went to work for our remand center, which is a jail,
Mm.
and be a guard, because of course that's, uniform and
Structured, yep.
yeah, and it's very military like. And he was just like, oh, someday I'll do it, someday I'll do it, because that was just too much for him to comprehend, leaving the army after
Mm.
22, 24 years
That's a long
to,
time. Hmm.
yeah, to do something completely, yeah, it's completely different. And him lying there had said, I wish I would have done it. Like, I wish, because like he didn't have a someday anymore.
Hmm.
So that really hit home with me, because I was a social worker for 20 years and I loved what I did, but I always knew that there was more that I could do. And I always wanted to dive deeper with clients. But really, in social work, what I was doing, you're kind of just taught to like band-aid things. And so that was kind of when he passed, it was like, yeah, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be on my deathbed going, I wish I would have, because I don't know when that day is going to come. And that
Yeah.
definitely taught me that lesson.
Brought it home, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, no, I need to do this. And so, and I was just having a conversation with someone about this earlier. It's kind of like when your life is already, and I apologize, in shit state because everything's just gone.
Mm.
Um, you have no choice but to rebuild, but there's kind of that glimmer of, I can do it the way I want now. Like
Possibility. Yeah.
yeah, it's not, everything's already up in the air. So I might as well bring it back down to what I want rather than just conforming it back to the way it was.
Well, and you have a way to talk to people too about, you can throw in the widow card and say, I'm a widow. If they say, what are you doing with your life, you can say, I'm a widow, I just trying to make it through, trying to re-envision what I have.
Yep.
So
And then that's definitely some days how it is. There's some days I'm just trying to make it through. So definitely more
yeah.
in the beginning, but I mean, it still comes up. Things still come up, and anniversaries, of course. Like I said, we're on 6 years now. So,
Yeah, so sorry.
oh, that's, there's been so much good that's come from it too, that I'm okay with it.
Hmm.
Yep.
I don't mean to equate this at all, but my dad died when I was 5, right before my 6th birthday, and
Hmm.
and I always say there was so much good that came of that as well. If he had to go so early, my mom ended up remarrying her high school sweetheart, and he was a great dad. He adopted us because our dad was gone, and so he's been my dad since I was 10, and that was a good thing that came of it. You
Yeah.
know.
I think a lot of times, I mean, when we're in it, we can't see past it. But I think, I mean, I've worked with so many people who've gone through like divorce or, being downsized and really traumatic things. Um, but it always seems to work out in the end. It always seems to work out better, or they're in a better place, or they feel better, or they find a better relationship, or whatever it is. And
Hmm.
I don't think that's doing a disservice to what their life was before. But like I said, when you kind of, everything's already gone pretty
Up
much,
in the air.
you have no
Hmm.
choice but to rebuild.
Yeah.
And there, it takes some of that fear away, because I think, even if you're talking about divorce, you're in a relationship, and the other side looks so scary because you don't know what that's going to be like to be single. But when you are
Yes.
single, it's like, meh, it's not that bad, I can do this.
Yeah.
And you just kind of, you get on with it and you just do it because you
Well,
have to. So
because you have to. Like I said, that theme kind of runs through these interviews. I did it because I had to, but you
hmm
didn't. I mean, you didn't have to. You didn't have to get up every day and thrive. You didn't have to get up and make a change. You did that. You chose to. You summoned up something within you that said, I'm going to go do something new.
that's
So,
very true.
yeah. So, congratulations for being on this side of it. And, every time I've spoken to you, has been happy and, got interesting things to say and all of that. So, yeah, that's good. So,
It's
do you?
funny, sorry, I was just going to say, we do always minimize. And yeah, you're right, it was, because some days, well, and the picture I sent you too has my dog in it. She was
Mhm.
my saving grace, because she has to go for a walk every morning no matter what. So
Yes.
that was definitely the mornings that I didn't want to. It was like, oh, I got to take her for a walk. But I mean, it got me up and it got me going. And so
Well, you had
that
someone
was
to love.
definitely support.
Had,
Yes.
had something else to love, which was good.
Yeah.
So, In your coaching business, do you find yourself coaching people about courage and about being brave enough to take the next step or to dream big?
Definitely the dream big. I think it takes a lot of courage to even come to coaching, because I think a lot of people, yeah, they don't want to talk about the crap. They don't want to put that out on the table. And so I think a lot of us suffer in silence. Um, and so I always give them, kudos for even taking this step, because there's, like, I would venture to say 95% of the population is out there suffering and not taking that step.
Yep.
So it does take that. And I do, congratulate them on that. And I do have to say, I'm so inspired by my clients. Like, no matter what they've been through, I can see what they go, like, their process of growth. And it inspires me to keep going, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found, one of the things I like to talk about is the transformational aspect of courage, is that when you practice courage and you take a few baby steps, that it transforms the way you see yourself. My
Hmm.
story is when I was 22, or maybe 23, I was in a relationship that was leading to marriage and all of this kind of stuff. I was engaged, and I realized he wasn't the man for me, and I said goodbye. I said no. And as women, I'm older than you, so this was in the
Yeah.
80s. It was still kind of, you go to school, you get married, you have a life and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So someone told me, it wasn't me, it was someone else told me, well, that was a really brave move to take. And I thought, oh really? It was just like self-preservation, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to be in a relationship long term that it wasn't going to serve me. So but I started seeing myself as brave, or courageous, and I integrated it into who I believed I was because someone told me. And I find, especially with coaching, you have the opportunity to tell people all the time, oh man, that's a great step, it's a brave step, and that helps them integrate into their life the fact that they are brave.
Yeah. I think, well, I mean, with anything, it's part of my role as a coach is to recognize your strengths, because we don't. And when
Hmm.
I took my coach training, that was something we did within, like, a group of coaches. We were training together, and we realized, like, how negative our self-talk was. And we thought, what about if we did an exercise about building ourselves up? And we challenged each other to write a strengths list. And of course, we didn't make it easy, because one of my values is challenge. So I'm all about challenging. Um, and I think we had to write 50, and it was hard. It was
Wow.
like, I know, like, even you're like, but isn't that sad that we can't own 50 of our strengths?
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, because we all have them and we have amazing ones. And so I'm not sure, well, I know that there's psychological and cultural things behind that, but why can't we own our strengths? Why are we so scared to say, I'm good at, or I'm
Yeah.
really strong, or I'm this, or I'm resilient, or I have courage and stuff like that? And I think that comes easier when you start loving yourself more and stop judging yourself, and you start accepting who you are. Then you can
Hmm.
start going, yeah, I'm pretty darn good at that. Or I have this quality about me that's mine.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree. You said, why can't we own them? And I think that we are out of practice. I think when you're a little kid, everybody tells you you're great. And well,
Hmm.
if you're in a happy household, oh, you're so pretty, you're so smart, you're so, oh, look what you did, yay. And we get out of practice with that, and you have to kind of do it for yourself. I think it
Hmm.
is really brave to get coaching. As my coach and I have talked about so many times, it's not for sissies. In taking
Mm-mm.
a good hard look at your life and owning up to the things that you are doing in it that aren't serving you. I mean, that's hard work.
Absolutely. There is nothing easy about realizing that you are sabotaging yourself and you're the one holding yourself back. It's
Hmm.
so much easier to go, it's that person's fault in this situation, and put it all outside of yourself. But to actually take that step and go, yep, I'm doing this to myself. That
Hmm.
takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of strength to, like, to be able to admit that, for
Admit it, and,
sure.
and take steps to turn it around.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's practice. It's all just practice, right? If you practice being courageous, you'll be more courageous. If you practice
Absolutely.
singing, you'll be a better singer. I mean, it's just that's just the way
Yeah.
it is.
Well, like I say to my clients all the time, when we're talking about changing perspective or changing belief systems or changing anything really, our brain is like a muscle like anything else. You wouldn't just get up tomorrow and run a marathon. You have to train for that. And that's what the coaching is. It gives you the tools that you just have to continually keep training.
Mm,
And soon then it becomes like automatic. And then you're
right.
like, oh, there's a negative self-doubt. Nope, here I am, and switch it.
Yeah.
And but I mean, till you get to that point, you have to, it's work. It is
Hmm.
definitely work
Hmm.
to switch those habits because they've been around for so long.
So did you get coached after your husband died, or did you know, because of your social work, did you already know you kind of wanted to go in that direction?
Um, I knew that I wanted to, and I thought about doing counseling, and I kind of looked into it, but it doesn't. I'm very spiritual, and it doesn't resonate with me. And I felt, well, that's just doing the same thing. That's just,
Mm,
I don't want to do that. Doing the same thing, but at a different level as
yes.
what I was doing. So
Hmm.
I kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and then coaching popped up, and I looked into it a little bit, and I'm like, yep, that's totally me. And the course I took was out of Portland, and it kind of left enough freedom that you could be like any kind of coach. And so I just,
Right.
and it's funny because when I went into it, I was like, I have a social work background, I can do this, like hands down. And I really didn't see it that much. I knew I'd grow and learn, but I really didn't see it as much that I would as much as I have. And then the whole thing just opened up again, and
Wow.
everything went on its head again. But again, I'm so happy where I am, and I'm so in such a better place than I was.
Hmm.
Um, Regrets I do have is I learned a lot how I was functioning in relationships when I started a new relationship just recently. And that was like, whoa. Because again, that coaching stuff where you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Maybe it wasn't all the other person. Maybe I had a role in this too. And so, I mean, I still continue to grow and learn, which I love.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do love to be challenged. So,
Yes, I do too. I always said I'm not afraid of hard. You know, I don't mind a challenge. I'm not afraid of things being hard. I don't like things that aren't, reasonably fair, but I'm
mm,
not afraid of hard. And I know, now getting coached myself, what a mirror it has held up in front of me. And it's bringing to light all of these things that I've told myself over the years that I have to reverse now because they don't serve me and I don't believe them anymore, but they just keep popping back in.
isn't it crazy? Our beliefs, like I do some energy healing with beliefs. And my goodness, the programming that we have in us is so limiting, so negative, and so not helpful.
And where does it even come from? I mean, when you're a little kid up until about 8 or 9 years old, you're wide open, and then
Yeah.
it's just like slowly starts to close in.
I think a lot of it, I mean, they say your belief system's set by the time you're 5.
Oh
So a lot
boy.
of it is stuff that you don't even know could have happened. And I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't even have to be done to set as a belief. Like the example I give, which is a common one for males, like males can't be vulnerable or can't cry, and I mean, it could be your dad or mom's having a bad day and you fall off your bike as a little boy and they say, boys don't cry.
Right.
There it is. If the emotions are right and if you received it that way, then there's your belief system right there.
Yeah.
And so then the rest of your life, you're like, well, I can't cry. I can't be emotional. I'm not a man if I
Mm.
do. And
Mm.
that kind of stuff. And I mean, the same thing with girls too. Like we see our moms doing their hair and makeup and, oh, I want to look pretty for your dad. That sets the belief system that we
Hmm.
have to be all done up to be attractive. And
To be desirable, yes.
yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, it's funny and it's not funny because we live it out. And for so many of us, it's on autopilot. And so they just these programs that keep going, nope, this is what you need to do. This is how you be a good girl. And so you do
Yes.
things. I know everyone gets the good girl thing.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
that so gives me shivers when I hear that now. Even when I say it to my dog about being a good girl, I'm like, oh, because
Yeah.
it's so true, and it's do this to be a good girl or do this to be a good girl. And I mean, as
Hmm.
adults, we just no, I can't say no. I can't put a boundary up because that's not being a good girl. I have to be
Right.
a people pleaser because then I'm a good girl. All of
Hmm.
that stuff. And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I was never the traditional good girl. I was. really afraid to get married for a lot of years because I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't do any of those things.
Mm.
But I can make a darn good living for myself, and I'm really smart in these areas, and I can fix stuff at home, and but I wasn't the traditional good girl who was caring for others, and so I always
Yeah.
felt a little bit like, well, nobody's going to want to marry me anyway because I'm not a good girl.
Yeah. See, and it plays both ways too. So some people feel like that's, you know, I see so many people who have given till they have nothing left, till they're just done because they're being the good girl by,
Hmm.
people pleasing and helping others, or so they think. Um, but then there's the others who, like, kind of like you said. And so it can go both ways, but it's still that programming that's in us. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's reinforced by media, it's reinforced, like, when you're aware of it and you start seeing your things, you're like, oh, yep, there you go. That's where that belief's like just pounded into us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah, crazy.
it really is.
Well, it seems to me that you've exhibited a lot of courage in your life, and I'm really pleased we got a chance to have this conversation. I'm glad you volunteered to be on my, as I call it, my show.
I love it.
Yep. So episode 7 is going to be showing tomorrow, is going to be dropping tomorrow, and you will be episode 8. So we're still
Oh,
pretty
okay.
darn new with this Courage Rises, and I'm really glad to have you as a guest, Tara.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to share it because I hope it helps somebody. I hope it helps people realize, yeah, that they're stronger than they think.
Amen. That's exactly why I do these things, because I want people to recognize a story that someone else tells and say, "Oh, me too."
Yeah.
I am brave. If they're brave, I'm brave by association because I went through that as well. So
Absolutely. And I don't think it has to be something big like a loved one passing away to be
no,
brave. It can be brave just setting that boundary. It can be brave, you know, saying no. Like, I mean, in your story, say no
mhm,
because that didn't serve you.
yeah.
That takes a lot of strength and courage. So,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I agree. You and I are on the same wavelength there.
I love
Well,
it.
well, thank you for supporting Courage Rises. I look forward to getting this edited and on the air.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tara.
See you.
This is Susan Jeffries of Courage Rises. Thanks for joining me for episode 8 of Courage Rises with Tara Stricker. If you have thoughts or experiences to share around the subjects of courage or bravery, or if you have a practice of your own on these topics, please email me at susan@couragerises.life. That's susan@couragerises.life. I'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for episode 9, which will be released on Friday, October 16th.